former sanctuary.
I agree. Yeah, this would be more.
Hi, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome. My name is Liz Erlewine, and I'm the Visual Arts Director here at Crooked Tree Art Center. And welcome back to Coffee at 10. Coffee at 10 has been a program that Crooked Tree Art Center has been doing for a number of years. We just had a few weeks off because, oh my gosh, July in Northern Michigan is a busy time, right? But we're thrilled to welcome you here today. Great turnout for a really great event with our special guests. Before we get started on today's program, just a couple of announcements. First, thank yous. A big thank you to Roast and Toast for making this event a coffee talk. So if you haven't found your coffee or pastry, they're out there and you can enjoy that before, during, and after our event today. These programs are also made possible thanks to our generous members and donors. So if you're a Crooked Tree Art Center member, just know that we are so grateful for your support. It continues to allow us to create the exhibitions that you see today, these free programs that we provide to the community, and really make it possible for us to keep Northern Michigan rich in arts. So big thank you. We are currently standing in our Gilbert Gallery here in Petoskey. We have a solo exhibition by artist Trisha Whitty. This exhibition is on display through the rest of the summer, but tonight we have an artist meet and greet with Trisha. And the artist currently exhibiting in our Bonfield Gallery just down the way. So if you haven't had a chance to check out that show, please do so as well. That artist is Nancy Nash. Both the artists will be here. We will have some snacks and an open bar, and you can mingle with the artists and enjoy those shows. So hopefully you'll have an opportunity to come back and join us tonight. And if not tonight, later this summer. So with that, I would like to introduce our special guest today. So this program, I'm really delighted that we are able to bring here to our gallery spaces and to Petoskey. We've got guests Tom Barrat and Sarah Martin. Tom and Sarah have worked on this book, which I hope you saw on your way into the gallery, but if you didn't, you can see it on your way out of the gallery. We're going to hear about this publication. Tom is a photographer who has over 80,000 images downloaded for use on websites, magazine ads, newspapers, and corporate reports, et cetera, et cetera. Honestly, I just licensed a few images myself for a project that I was working on.
Thank you.
So you'll get a chance to see this work and see its many applications. Sarah worked on this book with him and is a writer and editor for whom Northern Michigan is woven into her life. Once a Kiplinger Washington letter editor, she then wrote for the Daily Local News outside Philadelphia, where she now lives with her husband, Tom. Both Tom and Sarah have connections to Walloon and this beautiful region. So this book, I'm really excited for you guys to get a chance to dig into and for us to hear a little bit more about the process of its creation, because it really captures our region so beautifully in a way that I think can appeal to each of us individually, but tells and really shows that personal love and appreciation and an understanding of the region that you both share. So with that, I guess I'll turn the stage over and you can share with us what you've got about this book. Thank you.
Okay. I'm sorry, I've been practicing with this.
Is it working?
Did you? I just have to be stronger. It's not advancing.
Can you advance it from here?
There we go. Good. There we go. I'm Tom Barrett. Good morning. And my question is, if I walk around, can you hear me okay? Yes. Okay. Yes. And back to. Good. I'll do my very best not to put you to sleep and maybe to entertain you with a couple of things. First off, the reason that we're here is to talk about up north Michigan. A coffee table book which came out in April, which showcases the communities locally, Petoskey, Harbor Springs, Bayview, Bay Harbor, Walloon Lake, and Charlottesville. There was nothing quite like it when I decided to do the book. And so we're going to talk about the book. I'll talk about some of the issues being the publisher, both the publisher and the photographer. Sarah's going to talk about the research and the writing and her challenge. She had all the time in the world to think about what might be done, but she couldn't start until all the photography was done, agreed upon, and did the first layout in the book. So would this be one photo that she might talk about, taking 2 pages, where she would have maybe 100 words, or would it be on a page where she'd only have 50 words? All she could do was dream about what she might say. So when we did the first layout, kept hearing from Sarah, "Is it ready? It's ready, it's ready." And when I finally sent it to her, that began the clock. And not the final edits, but the submission to the printer, everything had to be done before 6 weeks. And then I got to do the final read through. Sherry Barrat, my wife, and the best proofreader that I know, read through everything. She said, "Tom, this is wonderful, but the story that you're telling is disjointed based on the order that some of this is presented. And you need. And so she gave me 38 things. Sure, if you're watching.
Count them.
Appreciate it very much. The book is so much better because of it.
That's very true.
So I'll just talk about myself a little bit. I'm going to leave this with you.
Sure.
My background is I was a banker for a while. Then I got into the computer software side of banking when I was with several of the banks, wrote code, designed systems, implemented them as a project manager, and then later found my way into sales. Why sales? So I'm sort of a shy guy. The reason was I could take something complicated and explain it in such a way that if you could follow box to box, box to box, I could take you through the process of a transaction and the bankers would understand it. And the technology people, when they had questions, could ask me, "So what do they mean when they say BCSC?" And I'll explain to them what that means. So I got into that business, but my hobby and passion had always been photography, starting from the 7th grade. And so when I retired, I reinvented myself as Tom Barrat Photography. That's when I started submitting photos that I've been taking for years and years. I took various stock agencies, and now those stock agencies are selling the work. I don't have to do anything. They collect the money, and I get a deposit every month. Not a bad deal. Sarah.
Our Zoom audiences can't hear you. Can you use the mic?
Sure. Sarah?
Okay, yeah,
Oh, Sarah, can you use the mic?
yeah, sure. I'll just turn this around. My name is Sarah Moran Martin. I have come to Petoskey and to Walloon Lake every single year of my unmentionable years of life. My mom grew up here. My aunt is here, her youngest sibling. You can raise your hand up here. And Petoskey and Northern Michigan are just woven into my life. I feel like my life started yesterday when we arrived. We have a cottage on the west arm of Walloon Lake that we share with my brother and his family. My parents built it, and we started occupying it 50 years ago this summer. So it's a family place where all of his girls come, where all of our sons come, dogs, boyfriends, girlfriends, spouses, and the rest. I have probably always been a writer from the time that I was able to print. I don't see it as work. I see it as my joy and my passion, and I continue it to this day. I was mostly a journalist in my professional career. I worked for the Washington letter of Kiplinger and also for the Chicago Sun-Times when we lived there. And then we moved to Philadelphia where we now live part of the year, but the most important part of our year is when we live here. And met Tom, and from there sprang the idea for the book.
Good. Thank you. Does that help with my voice?
I'll check in with her.
Okay.
Okay.
Good. My finger was fatter than I thought. So as a publisher, what are you responsible for? Everything. Everything. What's the scope of the book? What's the content going to be? What's the content quality? How is it going to get distributed, inventoried, sold? And so without doing a seminar on what I had to go through, I wanted to highlight some of the major things that as a publisher, different than this book, Chicago, a Photographic Portrait. This is a coffee table book where I was hired as a photographer. And I worked with Twin Lights Publishing out of Boston. So all I got was a shot list. Here's 150 locations. Go shoot the photos. You've got 4 months to get it done. Turn them in. They need to be this quality. We don't want too many, but they need to be perfect. And so I thought that was fun. When I decided that we ought to do a book for up here, I went back to Twin Lights and said, so I know I'm in a smaller market here, but would you work with me on this? And they said, well, Tom, it's too small a market. We're into bigger markets, New York, Chicago, Philadelphia, Seattle, and Northern Michigan. We don't have any contacts. So we wish you luck. And I said, would you introduce me to the people you used to print the book out of New York? So they did that. Would you introduce me to the expert who did the book layout and design? And they did. And so I worked with both those groups, but now I was funding it and making all the decisions. So where we are now, we've produced the book, it's out, and I'm at the tail end dealing with distribution and sales. So I personally have been the sales team, talking to local gift stores, bookstores. We're finally on Amazon, but early in the trajectory of that, Crooked Tree said, we'd like to support you. Thank you. And we'll put some books out and we'll see if they sell. And so I'm delighted. Thank you so much. So what is the shot list? If you're a photographer, that's your Bible. In this particular case, there were 192 locations that I gave myself as the photographer. Make sure you cover this. So some of it would be easy, right? And others would be less easy. But you wanted everything to be by location, interesting buildings, art, lifestyle. To me, seeing kids run off my dock and jump in the lake, to me, that's lifestyle, and it's part of why we're here in the community. It's just wonderful. Neighborhoods, events. So in Harbor Springs, they have a variety of events. The Vintage Car Show. Got to have that in the book. All right, so I had all of that put together. And then I had over 4,000 photos. Well, there's 128 pages in the book. What do you do with 4,000 photos? You don't use them all. So which ones do we use?
Well, these are some elements to select the best. Composition, that's got to be key. And I'll show you some examples as we go through. And then I'll stop talking. We'll get Sarah to talk about the photo and the research and the background and the storytelling. The exposure, overall lighting needs to be perfect. Well, for me, that's what I do. Stock photographers take photos to help people sell something or document it. You want to tell a story. So if the photo is perfect, but it really doesn't tell a story. So I have one on, it's a time exposure of traffic on Mitchell Street, going by the Myrace Hardware. Perfect. Doesn't really tell a story that helps in the book. And so I'll stop here and jump to, if all the photos are good, which one has the most impact? As a photographer, I love all my photos. So Sarah Day, Sarah without an H, Sarah Day did the book layout and design. And so she helped me select what she thought had the most impact and did a mock-up of here's the first book. Then we went through and we changed about 24 of them. But once that happened, and she was looking at all of these things, as was I, let's see what happens. Have any of you been to this location? Everybody has? The very first time I went here, John Hagener, who's not here today, he's doing something in Chicago, and Sarah took some of us on a driving tour around Petoskey to show us some of the history, where they grew up, where they lived. And this was the very first stop. And John said, Tom, that's the oldest building in town. I didn't know that. I didn't even know where it was. And look, it's right there next to Lake Michigan. So I had my camera with me, right? I always have a camera with me. I took a picture. Then I took another picture. And both of these are pretty good pictures, right? Not good enough to be in the book. Once I knew I was doing a book, and on this day, I decided after the end of that tour, I had to do a book. This community needed a legacy, and I was going to try to showcase it and make it look as good as I could. Sorry, I got a fat finger. So I went back now, knowing I'm doing a book. Same location, what's different? Blue sky,
Day itself.
the light. So photography is all about light and perspective. So this is okay. Everything's lined up, but this is a better picture. This is the composition that lets you see both the location, it's right in a little local community, next to this big body of water, Lake Michigan, Little Traverse Bay, and you get to see the dimensions of the building and that it has a bell tower. The other picture didn't have that. So now I'm going to show you a couple of pictures in a different community. Anybody know where this is? Okay.
Good answer.
So I was told that in the holidays, there's a Christmas tree that's put right there on Main Street. And so I went one evening, happened to be very, very windy. And I had been hoping to photograph this with snow on the ground. No snow. And what's the first thing you see when you look at this picture? I'll tell you what I see. As a photographer, I see that trash can. Trash can. And look up at the Berkshire Hathaway sign. It's blowing in the breeze. Not good enough to be in the book. So I moved up. And then I moved back. And I looked at this and said, well, maybe this is better. But I don't know. Still seemed like this time of year, there ought to be snow. And so I flew up and took this picture on New Year's Day this year. I had to get all of the photos in by January 31st with final copy, final editing, that's it, going to the printer. So this one didn't make the book. Composition. That made the book. Same location, just moved in a little better. And why might this one be better? The no parking sign is what I see first off. So now I'm turning it into photo editors. Now you're going to look at everybody's phone they take on their smartphone. And they're going to, hey, I got a picture of a dog. Let me show you. Let me see my cat this morning. Photo ready. I'm going to transition now to Sarah. She's going to talk a little bit about what's going on here.
Well, this is a really neat photo and a neat event over in Harbor Springs. First of all, this Christmas tree comes from a local tree farm. They find these trees all over the place, usually at least 45 feet tall. And they arrive, these trees, one a year, to Harbor Springs on a boat trailer. How appropriate is that for up north Michigan? But the coolest thing to me as I was researching this was to find out that the tree goes down a manhole cover to keep it stable. And that's how they get it to stay. So that's the backstory of this. And as I researched everything, I grew up here. I thought I knew a whole lot about Northern Michigan, and actually I do through my family and my mom and my aunt's heritage. But I decided I have to research absolutely everything. So I looked everything up, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that as we go forward. So that's.
All right, I'm going to let you guys be photo editors for a few minutes. We wanted this church. It was on the shot list. When you look at downtown Petoskey, the steeple, you can see it from so many places, particularly from the lake. And so I decided, okay, I got to photograph it. Well, I must have gone back to this location 9, 10, 12 times. This wasn't good enough. Why? Look at the sky. So now I go back. It's a little better sky. I've got some autumn leaves. But what's wrong with the building? Can't see enough of it. It's dark. You guys are catching on.
Fast learners.
And what's wrong with this picture? All of that. And it's still
And
dark.
pavement.
Through editing software, I can brighten it a little bit, but you really want the sun to be on it. So this made the book. And there was a wedding going on in the church. And that 55 Chevy parked in front, on the side has a little sign, just married.
Perfect.
It was a happy day. All right,
Kids.
now we're going to look at some lifestyle. This is my my doc. And there are a variety of ways you can present lifestyle at the lake. So if you look at this, and I'd say good enough. What do you think? I agree. Lifestyle. Young ladies sitting, kicking their feet. Good enough? Maybe. How about kids
Oh,
running?
Here we go.
So now I've got a series. Photo editors, ready? Set. Jump.
Ready to hold her nose. Yeah, and look at her legs.
So which one made the book? The one before it. Why? Because the young lady, first off on the far, has jumped so high that her hair is up in the air. And you can tell what she's about to do. And she's smiling. It's all those little things. Composition. You want your eye drawn into the frame of the picture. What's this a photo of? Well, it's the pier head and the lighthouse. What draws your eye in comes right there from the corner. So that's classic good composition. That's in the book. This is in the book. What does this do? You know where you're looking. Now you've got a little season added to the picture. You smile as soon as you see the color of the trees, and then you're saying, oh yeah, and there's the pier head. Not too many people on it. So now I'm on the pier head. Now how do we show the pier head? Do you do it with some people on it? One person, two, empty? There's empty. I don't know. Yeah. So let's put some people. And I've got different seasons. So now I'm in the Little Traverse Bay Ferry coming here. There's downtown. What's happening in the summer? There are people at the end of the pier jumping in the water, diving, jumping.
And fishing.
And so you're going around. Now, there's somebody jumping off, but is this good enough? I don't know. This could be anywhere. So while the composition has action, this one made the book. And this one did not, but lots of energy.
And lots of waves. You can be on this pier head and get totally soaked, depending on the time of year. And this is a place that shows Northern Michigan in all its glory, but also all of its fury, especially in the wintertime.
And so you look at the families that are there, they're walking their dog, they've got a baby carriage. This made the book. This shows all of the kinds of people just enjoying on a beautiful day, walking down the pier head, and some will go all the way to the end. You have to have wildlife, right? This eagle happened to be in my backyard. How many cameras did I use for the book? 7. This one happened to have a 50mm lens attached to it. So that's how I got so close. We see the Milky Way when we don't have all the Canadian
If we're
wildfire
lucky.
smoke.
Right.
So this was taken from our property, looking out at the other side of Wallen Lake. You've been to an event like this. Anybody have a smartphone like this? I took that photo with my smartphone. I had a tripod, I had a big Canon with a cable release, and I tried the same shot with that, and then I used the iPhone, and this was so much better. They are so wonderful in low light. What do I mean? Look at this. Wonderful in low light. Same smartphone camera. We use this one year in our holiday card.
It's Lake Street.
You want unique photos. Anybody know what that is? Okay, good.
One of the shortest ferry rides in the world is 5 minutes. And it used to be pulled by horses, which I have a little
Yeah.
difficulty visualizing.
So here's an aerial photo of, everybody know where that is? Charlevoix. Some people have never seen how large Lake Charlevoix is. This puts perspective into, now we've all seen kind of the little lighthouse at the end of the walkway, and we've seen that waterway. Well, that has its own name. Sarah will talk about it for a minute.
Yep.
But then right behind it is Round Lake. And that's what you see at the marina and from the parks. Beyond it is this big, gorgeous lake that is the 4th.
It's the 4th largest lake in Michigan. So it is connected to Lake Michigan by the Pine River Channel, which is that narrow thing that goes right by the Earl Young designed weather vane Inn. And they had to clear out boulders and all kinds of detritus to open it up so that ships and other, vessels could get through. Round Lake is dotted with all sorts of boathouses and houses from Earl Young, who is one of the better known architects up here. The guy who did the mushroom houses, the Hobbit houses in Charlevoix.
So I happen to be in the co-pilot seat on a small aircraft coming back from Beaver Island. So I'm in the co-pilot seat. There were 6 of us plus the pilot.
I happen to
Sarah
be
was
on that
this far
plane.
away from me. Tom was, I think, right behind me.
Yeah, we ferried over and then we cheated and took the plane back. Long ferry ride.
All right, I've got a couple more. Let you be photo editors. See what you think. Everybody knows where this is, right?
The Flatiron Building.
And everybody gets their sandwiches from Parkside Deli, right? Right. Chef Sarah has a copy of the book in her little window. And if you want to buy a sandwich and the book, she's got it. Okay, so here's a nice photo, okay? And architecturally, Sarah's going to talk about it in a few minutes. But, and what's wrong with this picture? It's too dark. And what's right there on the other side of it, a very important place in downtown Petoskey, the restrooms, very clean. So here now I'm back in it at night. Well, is that okay? Yeah, that's okay. But could it be better? Well, I don't know. Here we brightened the building on the side, says public restrooms. So far, this isn't good enough. And Sarah will, in a minute, be able to show you.
There I am with my library, sitting at home outside of Philadelphia with some of my books. I have quite a cadre of books at home, but I also did a lot of internet research, and I'm a lifetime subscriber now to the Petoskey News Review. That really helped me a lot. I was able to put a whole lot of what I was looking for into the search bar and pull up a lot of really good information. So.
All right, so I'm going to just do the photographer thing and say, okay, here's a great photo and it's early in the book. And then I'm going to transition. And this is showing you literally from the book, the narratives. This is the longest narrative that Sarah got to write. Normally down there where it says.
Not very long.
Yeah, but she had all the time in the world to think about
Oh,
it.
yeah. Yeah, and then 7 weeks to pull it together.
So say what you want
Sure.
on this. Or
Yeah,
you
this
want
is Chief Petoskey, Ignatius Petoskey, for whom Petoskey is named. Loosely translated in the Odawa language, it means rising sun. So he is facing west. This was a sculpture that was erected in 2005, I believe. It's bronze. And in one hand, he has a peace pipe. And in the other hand, he has a feather.
That's the winner.
Yeah. And this,
And why might this be the winner just from the photograph? It's clean, it's vertical, because this is a very unique styled building, which Sarah's going to talk about. And it's clean. You've got everybody looking happy.
right. And these are among the buildings, mostly in Petoskey, that are molded to the railroads that used to really run through here. How did people get up here? During the 1800s, mostly by train. Among them, Ernest Hemingway, whom we'll talk about in a minute. But this is one of the buildings, also the former J.C. Penney building that I noticed this morning is being renovated and fixed up. Meyer Hardware, the Perry Hotel. So they're all configured so that they can allow for the various lines of the railroad that came through Petoskey, passenger for the most part. Up there is, upper left is the cream colored Perry Hotel.
And there's the text where Sarah was able to now in a few words describe
50
what
or
was
fewer.
going on in the Flatiron building.
So Sarah Day, just as a sidelight, I would write all of the narrative and then we'd have to scrunch it down. So I became an expert at 1 and 2 syllable words that describe everything that's up in Petoskey. I want to tell you, I had my thesaurus, I had my dictionary, I had my online sources, and we were always trying to squish in as much information as we could. And that was one of the many challenges. And she would say, oh, nope, that line's too long. That's more than 50 words. So she would come back to me, it would be redlined, and I would edit it from there. Here's Mr. Hemingway. This is a statue that was erected a few years ago. He has a cane and a suitcase. The reason that he has a cane is because he was injured in World War I. He came back, and his family had long vacationed on Walloon Lake, Main Basin. Windermere is his family home, still in the family. And he was injured, and in that photo there, he is awaiting the train to take him to Toronto, where he was a newspaperman, and he was a foreign war correspondent and traveled all over. This is.
I was going to ask the question before I put this up. I'm sorry that I got it out of order. Does everybody know that there's a totem pole in Petoskey? Now I've given it away. The answer is yes. Do you know where it is?
At the community college. Right.
Well, here we are. Sarah's going to tell you about it.
Yeah, there is a sculpture garden at the community college, North Central Michigan College, and sculpture garden. The gardens are named for Jack Harris and displayed nearly 30 sculptures, and there's wonderful paths and trails through that whole area. Up on the upper right here, we have the Petoskey High School state-of-the-art stadium built a few years ago. The high school, from whence my mom and my aunt graduated, was not originally here. Now the high school and the middle school, as is the want usually today, are on the same property. And over to the right here is the Emmett County Fairgrounds, where a lot of events are held. One of my favorite photos.
This is happening tomorrow, Saturday.
Is it? Okay. Oh,
The-
good.
the You
I
Got It
didn't
or
miss
Got
it.
Yeah.
And that is placed on the page. These are all shots from Harbor Springs. Over here, we pay homage to the newest craze, pickleball. A lot of new courts are being built all over the place. And this is a little Traverse Yacht Club over here. Bottom right.
What city are we in? Has everyone been in there to see Harry? What a great guy. Every time we'd go in, Harry or one of, there's another young lady who would be working the glass. And I asked permission, you mind if I take, no, go right ahead. And so when the book came out, I had to make sure he got a copy, and I thanked him, and he said, well, can I sell some of these books in my store? And he's selling them in the store.
All Harbor Springs shots here, the farmer's market, all the Boyer pumpkins, which he displays up in Cross Village with another artist, come pumpkin time and fall. And also the vintage car show. Bayview, wonderful Victorian architecture, painted ladies, some of the better examples of Queen Anne architecture in the country, and noted for that.
And why did I take this one to put in the book? It has dragons on the roof. We don't have dragons on our roof over at Walloon Lake. We're going to have to up our game.
More pictures from Bayview. One of the original Chautauquas. Great Lakes Cultural Center at Bay Harbor. Opened a few years ago. More Bay Harbor shots here with beautiful lighting. I'll tell you, I just as a sidelight, it was so wonderful to work with these photos, because I would look at the photos and I would say to myself, how can I do justice to what Tom has captured? And it was just utter joy working with all of these
Well, thank
beautiful
you.
photos.
So now I ought to be Tom Barrat Realtor. Which house do you want to make an offer on? If you have a spare 50 million, maybe it'll be enough.
So I want to have a shout out to our captain, one of our captains here of the Petoskey Bay Harbor Springs Ferry, which is in the lower right hand. Matt, would you please raise your hand? Matt Perry, our dear friend from Wallen Lake, he's one of the captains. He's an avid sailor with his wife Jotty here in front, but he also captains this ferry, seasonally open, because otherwise in the wintertime they have to be cutting through.
And I
ice.
was on the ferry when we went around and I took those photos of the pierhead.
Ah,
Everybody knows this one.
the lighthouse in Charlevoix, Michigan has 129 lighthouses, more than any other state in the United States. And Boulder Park over here. Can you go back to that?
I can,
one?
I'm
Just-
sorry.
Yeah, just for a minute. Boulder Park, a development that Earl Young laid out and designed. He hated grid neighborhoods. He hated any streets that were straight. So he made Boulder Park. This is a 40-ton boulder. It's just to the west of Charlevoix proper, and built some wonderful houses, some of them rather large and commodious, others of them looking like a hobbit's going to come out and say hello. This is the old Charlevoix train station.
Why is this picture here? Well, it's a gorgeous building. It's history. I was enchanted that there used to be railroad tracks that went by it, but there aren't any. So they painted them on the
Yeah,
asphalt.
isn't that cool?
Yeah, so if you're just casually looking at it, oh, don't trip on the tracks. Well, you're not, because it's only paint.
More shots from Charlevoix, including this wonderful mural, which starts over here in the 1800s and goes all the way over to the mushroom houses to the right. It's painted on the old Rexall drugstore side of the building. Ah, the 17.
This sailboat is owned by Skip Merten. Neighbors of our good friends, Joanne and Steve, whose home Sherry and I rented for a month every summer for 6 years. And we'd marvel at that particular boat. One morning, 2019, I took that photo. When Skip saw it on the book cover, so we gave him a copy of the book, he said, "Tom, that's the best that my boat has ever looked." That's how I think it looks all the time, but I'm always there working on the varnish.
Yeah, and these boats are particular to Wallen Lake. They are made out of Western red cedar. They are racing boats. There is no cabin. There's a rail against which you brace your feet as you hike and heel. They're called 17s, not because they're 17 feet long. They're actually 24 feet long, but that refers to the square meterage of the sail. And the design was bought by a local woodworker named Ted McCutcheon, and then some fiberglass models were developed, but there are still lots of, maybe 20, 25 of these on Walloon Lake, and they race in the summertime. And they are truly, if you haven't seen them, a sight to behold. Absolutely beautiful.
One in the lower right, you see a couple of people kayaking. One of my best models, my daughter, Denise Rivas, who's here in the audience, is there. She's on the left-hand side.
And upper top there, just if we can go back, that was Michigania, which is the old Sherwood and Huntington camp. Ah,
So this is the Woodies. Wally Kidd organizes this every year. Last year and the year before, he had the wooden boat parade. So I was out photographing the wooden boat parade. And then they all come down to the foot on Walloon Lake, and they're there for a couple of hours. That's Wally's boat over there, Fast Break. And to me, they were just wonderful. What a great local event.
more Walloon Lake shots here. You know, every lake up here is just a has a plethora of water sports that we can all enjoy. Now here's Ignatius Potosi again, but as the sun is setting. This is the land of the $1 million sunsets, as we see, with water everywhere, almost wherever you look. There's a beautiful reflection, a beautiful sunrise, a beautiful sunset. And it is called the land of the $1 million sunset because a reporter from a Grand Rapids newspaper back in the 1880s came up here and he was blown away by how beautiful it was here. And he coined the phrase land of the $1 million sunsets. And so that remains to this day.
So that's the formal part of our presentation. At this point, you can tell we had a passion to create a legacy for the communities. And hopefully the book is doing that. Each story was designed to tell a story. And if it didn't tell a story good enough, it didn't make it in the book.
Yeah. And perhaps also to give you information that you might not have known. You know, for instance, Walden Lake. Well, I knew that it was called Bear Lake, but I didn't know that before that it was called Talcott Lake. So there were many surprises to me along the way because, of course, I researched absolutely everything except for the words the, a, and. Literally, because I just didn't want to make any mistakes.
So we're going to open this to a question and answer time if you want. I'll just say, as a stock photographer, this is on Lake Michigan. I made that little campfire at dusk so I could take this picture. And I took 18 pictures, different angles of it. This photo sells every day, somewhere. And so I'll just leave it up to keep the room bright. And if anyone has any questions of us,
Yeah,
yes.
I'll start us off while you guys all think about what we want to add. So speaking about that, choosing a photo to be available for stock photo. How do you decide what you're going to share in that way and which images you want to keep for yourself?
Okay. Let me just say, as a stock photographer, it has made me a better photographer. And why is that? You take a photo and it goes through a review before the stock agency agrees to put it out for sale. And so they'll reject it if there are things wrong with it. If it's out of focus, a lot of times I'll get a new camera and I won't get the focus point right. And so they'll reject it. If I get a good one, and it's of a building that has a logo on the side of it, I have to make the logo go away. So that's called photo editing. If it's a photo that has people in it, I need to get a model release, unless it's from the back and they're so far away that you couldn't tell who it is. So with that in mind, I want to take all the good ones, not overpopulate a particular category, but I want to put them out on the stock agencies. And the only ones that I keep in reserve that don't go out there are portraits that I do of friends and family. After you have 18 pictures of a leopard in the same tree, one is all that you need. Yes.
When the image was, I was wondering, were any of the people placed, or were they all, I seen the flat out where they were all, were the couples walking towards you, or were you looking out the theater, and there were so many people, did you place any of them? Or was
I
it
did
just-
not. Nope,
Okay,
that's
so
just action photo. Yeah. Yes, sir.
with the development of drones, do you do much aerial photography now?
I don't do any. It's a wonderful new way of seeing things. I just haven't spent the time. But perspectives you could see, you could have done a drone for that aerial photo,
Yeah, the round lake,
the round lake.
Lake Charlotte
Charlotte
Boy shot.
Doing it of houses is wonderful. Some of the realtors are doing that all the time.
Yeah, to
But I-
show their
but I haven't
placement
done
on
it
the
yet.
land.
There was a question in the back first. Yes.
Question, do you self-plow or do you take a lot of classes? For your
So when I was in the 7th grade, a long time ago, I was in architectural drawing. And the teacher said, welcome to architectural drawing. I'm going to teach you how to do these things. If you want to be an architect, it's important. But here's what I want to tell you. I'm the sponsor of the camera club. And I have 35 cameras that if you keep an A in this course, I'll loan you a camera to use. I'll teach you how to use it. I'll give you a roll of black and white film. I'll give you a permission slip to leave the school property. You go take the pictures and I'll develop them and I'll give you feedback. And so ever since then, I've been hooked. And so I've taken many classes. I've sat with professionals and learned photo editing from a standpoint of composition. I thought I was a hotshot. And instead of going out to shoot another 300 pictures down in the Petoskey area, it was a rainy day. Said, why don't we just stay here at the condo? Let me show you what I think is good, and you can tell me what you think and how to improve it. I learned so much that day because it was my work. And but then seminars on how to learn how to do different things. Continue to do that. I read a lot of things online. And the other way to learn, to me, is you look at other people's work and you see a perspective that you may not have thought of. It's like when I went to Antarctica, I already knew 4 pictures that I had to get. And so
Some of them were of penguins.
yeah, oddly enough, some were penguins. But that's a long answer. Yes, sir.
So Tom and Sarah, I love the book. I want to know what's next. What's the next subject?
Well, I've been asked that, and there are 2 answers. One is I'm still getting this put out as the publisher, so I have a little more work to do. We've been blessed with how well received it's been in the community, but I'm looking at beyond the communities. So I did nothing in Boyne City or East Jordan or Helston or
Lansing.
Lansing, Sleeping Bear Dunes, some of the attractions nearby. There's so many books on Mackinac. I don't know whether that's good enough, but I haven't formulated it yet. And so if you have suggestions, let me know.
How about the golf courses in Northern Michigan?
Oh, that would be rich. There's so many of them, right? Right, Corey? Yeah.
Yes.
The photograph of the boats, it almost had a picture. That photograph. I once did a one-day workshop here at Crooked Tree on using your iPhone and how you can use all these apps to make it look different. Do you use techniques like that?
I use multiple editing software. Most of the photos in the book or that I take, that I publish with a stock agency are used on larger 35mm cameras. Canon, Nikon, Sony. And so there you're able to manipulate the light with more precision. And then with editing software, you can do some brightening or deal with shadows. And so that's what was done on that particular, on the cover shot. I did have several candidates for the cover shot, which I sent to some friends and said, so I don't know whether this is going to count or not, but would you vote A, B, or C?
Guess what? The 17 one.
Oh, it was all of the 17. It
Okay.
it had to do with backgrounds.
Yeah.
And the one with the still calm water with a better reflection was the one that got the most votes. Yes.
Are there any locations that didn't fit in the book that you wish to have included? And are there any plans to use those elsewhere or publish them somewhere?
I have a lot of photos that didn't make the book and some that I would have loved to have in the book, like Horton Bay General Store. Why?
Close
Well,
to where Hemingway was
Yeah, the
married to
connection
his
with
first
Hemingway.
wife.
He would row his canoe across Wallen Lake, beach it, walk 7 miles over to the general store and the bar, and he hung out over there. And so it was in the book for a while. And then when we were going through that, organize it, it didn't fit into one of the 6 communities. Wasn't Charlevoix, wasn't Petoskey, and the address really is Boyne City. So I really wanted that there. Instead, we took that out and we put the photograph of John Cross Fishers, where I buy fresh fish. Yes.
Question for Sarah.
Sure.
And also to you, how with all this research that you compiled with this book that you're writing, will you write a book about the war?
Oh, I think this is probably it. I mean, I would love to collaborate with Tom on another book.
I want to be hired.
Yeah, yeah. And as far as my writing is concerned and how I became a writer, I've always been an avid reader. And I read all the time to this day. And to be a writer is to be an avid and careful reader of all sorts of things. So, you know, where we go with this, we'll see. But this was utter pleasure and joy, even though it was very compressed. I spent a lot of time sitting and
So
those 7
why don't we wrap
weeks.
up with one more question?
Yeah, that's good.
I just was gonna ask, Sarah, do you happen
Yes.
to know Lauren McIntyre?
I know that name.
She writes all of the articles, historic homes on Walloon.
Right.
Mhm.
So I've talked to her on the
We should
phone.
Get together for sure, because
Yeah.
Yeah.
she's an educator by background, but she does a wonderful job, and she researches, just like you did, all of the history and interviews the people that have many of the classic historic cottages on Walloon.
That's a wonderful
That's a good
suggestion.
point,
Thank you
Rob.
for that.
She called me one day and said, "Hey, I hear you're doing a coffee table book. What are you doing it on? Because I have this niche." And I told her what we were doing, and
Yeah.
you could hear over the phone. Oh, that's fine.
That sigh. That sigh.
That's not
of-
what I did.
That sigh of relief.
Yeah,
Right.
and we didn't want to do what she's doing. We didn't photograph one house and then do a whole detailed history. That's another approach, but.
Well, and 50 words or fewer.
Oh. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you all for being
Thank
here.
you so much. What a joy to be here.
Great, thank you. So everyone, please stick around. There's more coffee and possibly more pastries. And Tom and Sarah are going to join us out there for book signing. So if you already have a copy of the book and brought it with you and would like to get it signed, you can do so. And we have plenty of copies. If you do not yet own this book, you can purchase it at our front desk and get it signed there. So thanks so much for coming out, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.
Oh, well.